All right, today we're going to talk about something pretty cool. We have a new processor from Big Dog's Trinnov. This is pretty cool. I'm noticing a trend where a lot of these very luxury home theater brands are releasing products that still kind of hit that luxury price level, but much, much cheaper to get people involved in the ecosystem. Like Mad VR with their NV Core. They slashed it pretty hard. What is that, like $6,000 to get an NV Core compared to what it was costing before? Sure, you're missing some features, but it gets people in to Mad VR. And then similarly, Kaleidoscape's released like what, 3 different players that are, standalone players to get you into the ecosystem, to get you acquiring movies. I think this is good. None of them are coming down to, I would say, affordable products, but they're coming much down, which is really interesting here. And so Trinnov is clearly following suit with the Altitude CI. And this is really interesting to me. It's a very interesting prospect. What it is it's going to be relying a lot on audio over IP. So things like Dante and AES, really interesting. So really trying to kind of hit that prosumer level of marketplace here. And so what I believe it comes with is it's got 8 outputs out of the gate. And so the idea is it can span from 8 to 32 channels, and I believe it says 64 next year. But the idea is you pay for the channels that you need. And as you upgrade your theater, you pay a little bit more to add the channels that you add. So I think this sits for people that maybe have more channels than 16, but don't quite have 32 channels to splurge for the most expensive Trinnov. Now they can start with an Altitude CI and scale that up. So naturally, my first question is, how does it work with amplifiers past those 8 channels that you get? So naturally, I think what they want you to do, obviously, is pair it with the Amplitude. And that's going to be the simplest way. They essentially make an expansion card for the Amplitude 16, where now, not even having to use the DB17, it's literally one Ethernet cable to and from your processor and amplifier. Really slick. Honestly, love that. Your custom integrators are going to love this so much. I totally see where they're going with that. They're definitely still trying to stay in that custom integrator range, but bringing the price down, it seems, at least ideally. We don't know any pricing on it just yet. And so this intrigues me, right? I am always thinking about what is going to be my next preamp. Right now I am running an AVR in preamplifier mode. Would definitely like at some point to take that next step up to a dedicated preamp processor. Trinnov releases an entry level, which is really nice, but probably still overkill for just the 8 channels. I think anyone investing in Trinnov probably has more than 8 channels. I mean, that's 7.1, and then you don't even get any additional channels for multiple subs and things like that. So you're far going to exceed that, but maybe you don't quite hit 16 channels. Well, this is where this can come into play with its audio over IP capabilities for expanding that. So my next question is, how do I use this with my current amplifiers past the 8 XLR outs that I'm going to get? We don't have any pictures of the back yet, so kind of speculatory on how they're going to deliver those. But apparently 8 onboard outputs that you can get access to. But what if I have 7.4.4? How do I get those additional 8 channels out? So again, you can leverage audio over IP, and essentially what you need are something like this. You need a Dante digital interface that has outputs. So this has 16 in, 16 outputs. Really, we would only be using the outputs on there, and that would basically get us to 24 max channels on top of this. So basically, you keep it in your rack. You see here you've got your DB cables that basically span out to XLR to connect to your traditional amplifier. Very interesting. Super prosumer gear. Looks like we've got redundant power on the thing as well, redundant Dante connections as well. And so I'm going to do a little bit some price speculation. I don't know, again, Trinnov hasn't given an official price for the Altitude CI, but we can speculate. And I have some rough numbers that I think are pretty close, but I wanted to kind of just brainstorm what this configuration would look like if you wanted to get a taste of the Trinnov preamp. You're not willing to spend the money on Trinnov's amplifiers. I'm certainly not. I like my Buckeye amplifier. Any preamp I go is going to be paired with the Buckeye. I see no reason to ever replace it, only buy more because I like Dylan's amps. They're really cool. But, maybe I still obviously want the expandability to try different preamps. So what would I need to get more than 8 channels out of this? Again, you would need some sort of Dante card like this that spits out XLR and then your amplification. So add another 2800 to your system. I did find this little dinky looking guy. This guy only does 8 outputs. So if you don't want to go all the way up to 24, you just want to double your outputs. You're doing it now for $2,100. Again, this is just like one of the first things that I found that would just take Dante and give me analog outputs. So again, they are balanced line level. So interesting premise here. What I want to compare to is, again, we've got the Trinnov Altitude 16 at a whopping 19.5 grand. This is prior to the release of this, your baseline entry level. And so I have heard some rough figures that it's going to cost 10 grand. So I've got Mr. Calculator here. We're looking at 10 grand for the Altitude CI. So let's call it 10 grand. And then I already have my amplifier, so let's factor that in. But how many channels do I want? Well, this is where it could go from here. So maybe I just need an additional 8 channels to do 7, about 4.4. Because again, we got to go in even numbers anyway. So if I add another 8 channels, let's say roughly 2 channels is a grand, I believe is what I was told. So we will say 4 grand. So we're looking at 14 grand alone for the Trinnov to be able to get capability to have, the baseline price plus 8 channels of 2 grouped in for a grand. So we're at 14K now. And then again, if I don't want to invest in Trinnov's amplifiers, I need to add on my own red net here. And then from there at 1400, we can say another 2800. We're at 16,800. All right. And looking at the Trinnov Altitude 16, bringing the calculator back up here, we are saving a few grand, including our converters, going up to 16 channels. So we're really close into, like, I might just spend the extra 3 grand to keep it all in one unit here. Obviously, used market, you can probably find cheaper Dante cards and, shop the used market, save some price to make it reasonable and make it worth it if you want the full 16 channel experience. But again, the point is to be modular. So maybe, sure, I've got 16 possible outputs, but I'm limited by my room, by my system, or whatever. So again, we'll start with that 10 grand. Again, these are approximates, okay? Don't hold me to the fire here. I'm just playing an interesting experiment. So we got 10 grand. Maybe now I don't need as many channels. Maybe I only need an extra 2 channels. Or, excuse me, let's say 4 channels. So now we are at 12K. Again, 2,800 for the converters. Now we're basically at 15K, saving close to 9K there. So the reason I'm factoring this out is because I just don't know how many home theater enthusiasts are walking around with converters, Dante enabled converters. That's definitely a lot more of the prosumer audio, live audio, studio audio thing that I don't see very many people starting from scratch with this. And then so what I want to look now is how much is the Trinnov amplifier. All right, doesn't look like Dream Media wants to tell me how much the Amplitude 16 is, but roughly looks like it's about 12 grand for those channels. So pretty expensive to go that route. So again, wanting to keep your own amps does still bring you a decent amount of cost savings for the Altitude 16 if you don't need that. But if you're approaching 16 channels, this is still, I think, the way to go. Unless somehow you magically just have Dante converters as a home theater enthusiast, then I think this is a pretty approachable deal. Right now, I'm kind of confused at the decision. I mean, I guess it makes sense. But again, this is why I make YouTube videos, to discuss with you guys, to see what you guys think. Am I completely missing something? Is there something that I'm not seeing here and I did this completely wrong? Let me know in the comments. Let's definitely talk about it. I'm interested. Again, it is cool to see Trinnov bring down the price on these. Maybe I'm way off on how expensive these are, and you can get the job done with cheaper Dante converters. Please let me know in the comments. Happy to learn and be educated, but did feel like I had some stuff to say on this and just kind of brainstorming out with you guys. So appreciate you checking out the channel. I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.